disrupted.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So, I was scrolling through the headlines, and you know when you get that moment where you see a headline, you shake your head and go, this is the most absurd thing I've ever seen. Like, I can't believe those words utter out of people's mouths. So, this came around when I saw an article from CityNews Toronto, and in the wake of all this censorship, and you know my stance on, freedom of speech, I'm a free speech principled person. I protect freedom of speech for every single individual because I think that's what we need to grow as a society. We need those conversations. We need diverse opinions. We need to have, conversations with one another in order to evolve and grow and come up with ideas and opinions. I think that's important to help a society flourish. But in the age of COVID, in the age of the Ukraine war, in the age of, furthering down technology and the surveillance and, the intelligence community and all this stuff, there's still this continuing battle of censoring out information away from the public, which is the oldest fight in human history. This is something that, lordships used to do to the peasants back in the Dark Ages, and we're still experiencing it to today in the 21st century, in the era of the information highway. So, CityNews. I can't believe this is an article, but this is what they came up with. This is from CityNews saying, how to vaccinate yourself and others against misinformation. You heard it there. And like I said, I shook my head and I couldn't believe that actually uttered out of someone's mouth. To the point that they published this. How to vaccinate yourself and others against misinformation. I guess we're just ejecting ourselves with corporate censorship and it's just flowing through our bodies because our brains cannot process the amount of words and phrases and news that we can just gather all from different directions. We need someone to help us. Every time I see an article like this, it pisses me off. This is the most insulting thing you could say about the general public because it literally it fears us that we're that stupid. It's implying that we're that stupid, that we can't figure out and determine what's real and what isn't. That's the whole point of a critical society. That's the whole point of determining for ourselves. That's how we grow as people. I spent years in school doing critical thinking. That used to be what schools were about. Now it's just go with the flow. Shut up, go with the flow, and just deal with it. Don't read on. Don't look at things. Don't read. Don't educate. Don't look elsewhere. Don't have difference in opinions. Don't fact check people. Just go with the flow, and no one gets hurt. That's the world that we're living in. So, they say, this is in the article here, in today's big story podcast, in recent years, misinformation has become increasingly common, and it will likely get worse due to the rise of artificial intelligence and deepfake technology. Now, even the most savvy news consumers need to be in the habit of checking things twice, but there may be a way to fight back against those who aim to mislead us. Sander van der Linden, author of Foolproof, Why Misinformation Infects Our Minds and How to Build Immunity, says we can inoculate ourselves and find people around us from the threat of misinformation. Who says that? Who says that? And also, again, to use their phrasing, because they're trying to correlate, COVID terms and vaccinations and medical terms into this article. How about natural immunity? How about, us figuring out for ourselves and doing some back research, all the years that we had to do bibliographies in school and look for the author and when this was written, like all that research that people used to do. Why are we not endorsing that? Why are we not endorsing people to actually look at things twice for themselves? Take all the information in and then make a judgment based on everything that they've consumed. That used to be the principle of living a normal life. But now in this day, it's, you're stupid, you can't figure it out, so we're just going to take care of it. Because, the media's never misinformed people. The corporations have never misinformed people. The government's never misinformed people. Even though they're the biggest misinformers of human history is the government and the media that repeats it. People keep repeating the same tropes over and over again. Yeah, in the media and in the government. And they're predictable. Yes. Not us, them. And so you can actually anticipate them and warn people in advance. So how do we protect ourselves from misinformation? What tropes do manipulators commonly use? And how should we go about protecting the people closest to you from misinformation? So here's a bit of the podcast interview here, and I'm not going to play all of it because it's about, 37 minutes long. But they interview the guy that wrote this book about misinformation, how we to inject people using vaccine terms because people could fall into the rabbit hole of misleading claims. And instead of building upon natural immunity, which is, actually critical thinking, analysis, and fact-checking those people, they say that we need to take that to someone else and they need to take over our decision-making to decide what's real and what isn't, even though they're the ones that are misleading us. So take a listen to this.
Right in the intro to the book, you write that at a basic cognitive level, we are all susceptible to misinformation. And I just have to ask, how serious are you about that? Even me, even people who are extremely, and listen, I'm not trying to brag or anything. I am extremely online. I've been a journalist for 20 years. You have a bunch of quizzes in the book, and I aced them all. And I find it—
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I find it difficult. I'm really not trying to brag. I find it difficult to think that I am susceptible to this stuff. And I imagine a lot of people who are very well versed in social media technology and news media especially would feel the same way about themselves.
Yeah, it's a great question. I gave my wife the test that's in the end of the book, and she scored like in the 98th percentile or something. So it was she did better than me, and I came up with it. So I was impressed. But when I was writing the book, the editors asked me, like, is it really the case that you're fully immune to it because you're an expert? And I said, no, I mean, not really. I mean, there have been instances where I've been duped just because, our brains have limited capacity to process information. We're all under pressure. We're overloaded with information. We rely on simple rules of thumb that are not always accurate. And so it is possible even for experts to get tricked and dupe. And I give one kind of example in the book where I think it was about the NASA kind of Mars rover landing, and Stephen King retweeted something, and here I go trusting Stephen King to tweet, maybe to tweet reliable content. So I retweeted it. It turned out it was kind of a fake video with fake Martian winds, and it was realistic because it was pasted together from real landings, but it wasn't the one that was actually about to happen. The thing.
So he started off by saying that, our brains can only capacity so much of information. And I understand that. We have a busy lifestyle. We can't always fact check everything. We can't always, sit down and critically analyze everything. I know I can't. Even doing the show, it's, concerning my lifestyle and concerning the stuff that goes around on an average day, there's not always going to be a story that I can cover or critically analyze for myself, and sometimes I get things wrong. I understand that. But then to go to an example of retweeting Stephen King about the Mars rover. Like, the thing that just drives me crazy is that instead of promoting that people should give themselves a daily dose of skepticism, to use the medical terminology, because I said the same thing about COVID. We weren't promoting, people taking multivitamins. We weren't promoting people to get healthier, to, exercise more. We weren't promoting people to, fight, build up their immunity so they could fight against COVID when they do get it. We weren't doing that with COVID, and we're not doing this with misinformation. Misinformation, We're not telling people to, examine for themselves and look at other resources and not always take, Stephen King's word on it, not always take CityNews' word on it, not always take, one source's word on every single action. You need to go and hear the counteract. You need to hear other people's opinions. You need to go on the left side of media and the right side of media. You need to hear all the opinions so you can have all the story and the objections towards it, and then make a conclusion based on those findings. That seems like the more scientific approach to battling misinformation. But this guy is saying like, oh, we need someone else to dictate over this because I might be retweeting Stephen King, and Stephen King might be wrong, and I don't want to hurt Stephen King's feelings. Like, it just seems so stupid.
Thing is that they were able to dupe me because my brain was expecting to see something. So we'd heard that there'd be an announcement of the rover landing on Mars that month. I just forgot the exact date, and so when I saw it online, I just connected the dots. My brain just connected the dots and said, "Well, you were expecting to hear something about Mars. Here's a video. This must be it." But I think the moral of the story is that we can't be scrutinizing every piece of information at that level of detail, everything that's coming at us, right? And so manipulators can take advantage of that and exploit us. And there are certain biases that are common to everyone.
But then the other question is, who are the people that are going to dictate who the manipulators are? Because I will tell you firsthand, it is the government. It's the feds. It's the intelligence community. It's the people that have been lying to you for decades. That's my first instinct. My first instinct is to never trust them. It's to always fact check them, always critically analyze what they are saying. That's my first instinct. And the media that's repeating it. But the media doesn't fact check them. So that's because we have to become the fact checkers. That's what people need to understand about this. Because the news media has failed to be the watchman. That leads down to us. That's why people go to podcasts and YouTubers for their information more than they do with cable news and city news. They don't trust the broadcast system because the broadcast system isn't developed with the manipulators, with the liars, with the corporate estate and the establishment and the oligarchy that continues to perpetuate all these different lies and manipulate you at every turn. So there's no one really critically analyzing that unless it's coming from you. That's the thing, and that's what this guy is failing to tell you. He's just leaning to the fact that, oh, I retweeted something and I didn't know it at the time, and that's why we got to get someone else to inject us with the right information, probably from the government sources. Because they would never lie to us, inject us with that information, and then hide away everything else. Because how do we know that they're not the ones lying? But luckily for him, it's already intact. Because as you know, Canada's already in the path of, authoritarian censorship. And we've shown it before. We've shown it multiple times about Bill C-11. It just came to pass, and things are not looking good in the direction of protecting free speech. And Reclaim the Net reports this, says Canada's censorship bill explained a chilling law that lets the government censor user-generated content. And again, it's under the guise of promoting Canadian content, but then who's the arbiter of deciding what is Canadian content and what isn't? Because I'm a Canadian. I'm broadcasting this in Canada. I'm filming this right now in Canada in my basement. I'm a Canadian citizen and telling you about Canadian politics and making, politically funny satirical videos. But they could deem this misinformation and kick me off the internet at any point in time. Because it's their decision. It's not the accurate decision, it's just their decision. And they'll twist and reverse and, twist around the logic and truth for their own agenda, for their own purposes. Same with this. And we've shown this before too, but I want to show it again. How Google will be now pre-bunking online misinformation. So before you even know that's false, before you even know that whether it's fake or isn't, or make that decision based on your behalf, Google's now going to decide, oh, it's fake information. Here's the right information. Suck it in, get into line, shut up, go with it. If you hear anyone else that they're automatically false and they're just kicked out of the club. That is how they manipulate the masses, ladies and gentlemen, and this is how they manufacture consent. And this is what the guy in the podcast there, this, famous author that's telling you to vaccinate yourself away from misinformation because it's the new virus, is completely full of shit. He is duping you on purpose, people. He wants you to fall into the line of the mass censorship campaign and manipulating the masses to fall into the line of the oligarchy and not really holding them accountable. Not really holding the actual manipulators that are proven to lie for decades, not holding them accountable. And that's just why, exactly how stupid the CityNews headline really is. Just how ridiculously duping this really is, and how pathetic that our journalism here in Canada is exactly like in America. They don't actually hold the corrupted accountable. They are just there to manipulate us to think that they are, but really they're just corporate stenographers. And that's why you come to people like me. That's why you do your own research. Don't even take my word. Don't even take my word for granted. This is why I encourage people to fact check me. Because you are the only people that can figure out what's right and what isn't. Because the true watchdogs out there have completely failed us. So that's why podcasts are becoming more increasingly popular. That's why people are getting away from cable news. And that's why I encourage people to do their own research, even though the New York Times will tell people not to. Do your own research, do your own reading, figure out things for yourself, and that's how you grow as a person. You grow as a person when you become more knowledgeable. And because knowledge is power, the more information you know about things, the more powerful you become. And the establishment hates powerful peasantry. They hate when the general public, the citizens gather together with their information, with their knowledge, and stand up against authority. That is their worst nightmare, which is why they would do stuff like this, which is why they would tell you that everything's misinformation except coming from us, and why public trust in institutions are completely obliterated. They're completely losing touch with the people. They're continuing to manipulate us and then telling people that they're going to stop manipulators. Just so ridiculous.